I just got to see a movie that I've actually been pretty intrigued to go check out. It's a movie called Hell of a Summer. This is actually directed by Finn Wolfhard and one of his friends, Bill Brick, right? Of course, Finn Wolfhard is the main kid from Stranger Things. Bill Brick, never heard of him before, but they co-directed this thing, co-wrote it, and co-starred in it. They're both actually in this thing. And I was very interested in this film as somebody who is around the same age as these kids and are watching these people that are around my age kind of get the opportunity to make a film that is getting a full theatrical release. It had like a little bit of money behind it. I believe this had like a $3 million budget, which is $3 million more than I get to make my movies. I wish. But this movie is essentially a slasher movie in the vein of Scream. If you've seen any of the Scream movies or any of like the similar spin-offs in that genre, specifically this year, we got that movie Hard Eyes, we had Thanksgiving. Those movies that introduce a bunch of different characters, usually a group of friends. They introduce some sort of masked killer among them, and there's a mystery of who's the killer, why are they killing, and it's kind of a little satirical, a little comedic. And that's what this is. It's sort of a comedy about a bunch of kids, about a bunch of camp counselors at this campsite, as there is a mass killer trying to take them all out. And you have to figure out who's the killer, you have to figure out why they're doing it, and along the way you have some comedy and some meta stuff about growing up and like the coming of age and moving on from your childhood whims and loves, right? The film really centers on this character named Jason, played by Fred Hetchinger. He's this guy who's been attending this summer camp from a very young age, right? As a camp member for a bunch of years and now as a camp counselor. He's 24 years old and he's still spending his summers at this place when he probably should be doing just about anything else with his life. He's really this sad and sort of pathetic but lovable guy, and he's dealing with a bunch of these other camp counselors who are really just kids. They're here as a summer job and just really trying to have fun. One by one, they slowly start getting killed off. We have to figure out who the killer is, and you pretty much get your same beat-by-beat sort of tropey film that you would imagine from that genre. There are some things missing from this film. You can definitely tell this was made on a much smaller budget than, say, a Scream film. For example, some of the kills happen very much off-screen and are very, very simply put together. You don't have like these over-the-top gore sequences, which maybe, of course, you could do on a smaller budget, but you just don't see a lot of that here. There are a few of those types of kills where you really see everything that are done well, but nothing here that's really going to be memorable past like the end credits. You also don't have much of a third act in this film either. I feel like it kind of just gets to where it's trying to go very, very fast, and there's not many surprises here. I do really like the direction, which is something big to say about first-time directors who are young and who are like my age. I think the direction is really neat and cool, and there's some really cool ideas, especially early in the film, where they take your expectations as a viewer who's probably seen a bunch of movies like this, and they kind of just flip it on its head. It doesn't try to be too tropey at times, right? In a moment where it feels like it's setting up a jump scare, it feels like you're waiting for that big jump scare, you don't know how it's going to happen. Well, there is no jump scare. The actual reveal is much simpler and actually kind of funny. Or even like the tropiness of like who the killer or killers are, right? With all these movies, it's always the mystery of who is the killer. And in this movie, it becomes pretty clear about midway through if you really put like one brain cell of thought into it. It's like, that's probably the answer. And the film is smart enough to know that you're smart enough to get that. It doesn't treat its audience like a bunch of idiots. It understands that you've probably put two and two together, so the way it reveals it to you is very much like, yup, there it is. Which might turn some people off because it's just kind of out of nowhere, at least like if you're somebody who didn't have it figured out, I guess. But for somebody who's like seen a bunch of these movies and it's like, yeah, this one's a little more obvious, I appreciated the way they went about its twist. I really love the writing here too. The dialogue is really fun and whimsy. These characters definitely speak like kids, which makes sense since it was written by kids. I think a lot of the relationships between these characters, especially in like the romance sense, felt also really organic to what you would expect in real life in a situation like this. I don't know if the bad guy here felt as devious and evil and threatening as they do in other films like Scream, but they do their job for the most part. And overall, I really love the characters here. Jason, the main character, I think is so much fun to watch. You're just rooting for the guy, despite the fact that he just seems like the type of person you would probably not want to be friends with in real life. He's just kind of a mess. A lot of the other characters are just really fun too. There are a few forgettable ones, a few just throwaway characters, but there's also a few that I wish I had more from, just because I enjoyed the little glimpses of them that there were. There was like this kid who's a filmmaker in the movie. He's like a mini Timothée Chalamet is, I think, what they were going for here. There's like this vegan girl, and they're just kind of making fun of vegans in the movie, which I thought was hilarious. There's just a lot of really good stuff here that I enjoyed, from somebody just watching this hoping to get a fun, small, low-budget independent movie, and that's what I got here. And I don't think if you're going into this expecting something grand, especially from this genre, you're not gonna get it here. But if you approach this knowing what it is, it's a movie directed by a bunch of friends who are young, and this was really their first chance to make a movie at this level, I think you could really appreciate something about it. This is really good, small filmmaking, which is not something you get to see in a big theatrical setting very often. If you're somebody who participates in the smaller festival scene, you see a lot of films that might be like this, just a bunch of friends on a small budget making cool stuff. But to see this in a full theatrical release is exciting to see, because this is like the goal of everybody that is around this age trying to make movies. Of course, we're not all lucky enough to have starred in Stranger Things, which opens up a couple opportunities, I would imagine. But Finn Wolfhard definitely has some talent. Everybody involved in this movie had a lot of talent, and this is just a good, fun time that I would recommend. It's a short movie, doesn't overstay its welcome, and if you need something to do on a Friday or a Saturday night, turn this one on, you're gonna have a good time with Hell of a Summer. So I'm gonna give this film a 3.5 out of 5, and a big recommendation to go check it out. It's just a small movie that is a ton of fun. It doesn't do anything exceptional, it's not exactly memorable, but it doesn't really do anything necessarily bad either. It will probably get lost in the spectrum of this genre. There's just so many movies in this genre, so many that do more with its concept, so many that are able to do more with its concept because they get a bigger budget and they're able to have a big explosive third act and tons of more characters and locations that this film obviously just did not have access to. But in the grand scheme of things, with like a $2 million budget, this was an incredibly impressive movie. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to check this movie out and make up your own opinion on it. Thank you for subscribing and liking my videos, hopefully, and I'll see you in the next one.